Hello and welcome to another episode of We the People, the only show that takes an in-depth look at local, state, and national politics as it pertains to the East Alabama area, particularly the Anniston and Oxford area. My name is Corey A. Bradford. Thank you all for joining us. We were off last week, took a little break. Now we're back and we have a lot to cover. In the last week or so, we saw both the Super Tuesday primaries and we also saw what we call Super Saturday primaries. And all in all, nearly 20 states casted their ballots both for the Republican Party and the Democrat Party in terms of who they want to see as the nominee this fall for the presidential election. And we're going to be reviewing all those results and what they mean for the candidates and what it means for Alabama. We also have a very special segment about Super Tuesday. On Super Tuesday, I went to Birmingham, Alabama, along with a producing friend of mine's, and we canvassed the area, and we actually got some footage both from the Bernie Sanders headquarters there and from the Hillary Clinton headquarters there. So it's going to be very interesting to look at that footage, and we'll have that segment coming up later. And we also have another very special segment we're doing this week, political quiz time. We went out to Oxford Lake, which is, if you're familiar with the Anniston Oxford area, you know all about Oxford Lake. We went there and we quizzed a couple of people to see just how much does the average citizen know about politics and American government. So we got a very exciting episode, a lot of things to discuss, but first things first, let's get into the local events of the last few weeks here. All right, so in our local events section this week, there isn't really a whole lot of things going on locally speaking, politically speaking. But there is one thing that I wanted to mention just in passing. The Alabama Supreme Court in this past week has refused to challenge the U.S. Supreme Court on the constitutionality or unconstitutionality of gay marriage in the state of Alabama. Basically what that means is there was a probate judge who was basically asking the Alabama Supreme Court to allow them to continue to hold bans on gay marriage in the state. And the Alabama Supreme Court basically said no. Like, this is something that has been constitutionally approved by the Supreme Court, and it doesn't really do any good to continue to fight it. We are wasting time and we could be doing more important things. And that's basically what they said. And so now, even though there are some areas that are still refusing to issue license and things of that nature, there have been thousands of gay couples that have been married here, probably not thousands, but at least in the hundreds that have been married here in Alabama, and it is technically no longer against the law to do so anywhere in the country. But particularly in Alabama, the Alabama Supreme Court has said that it is not going to fight on this issue anymore in terms of trying to keep it banned in Alabama. Basically, what I wanted to say about this story was this is kind of a sign of the times. We really need to move past this. I mean, there are many things dealing with our Constitution, dealing with our government, dealing with politics, dealing with all sorts of issues, whether it's the environment, whether it's education, whether it's, corruption, crime. There are so many issues that we need to be focusing on. The private lives of Alabama citizens is not one of them. And so I think that the Alabama Supreme Court was in the right for refusing to challenge the U.S. Supreme Court on gay marriage. I think they understand that this is an issue that is just really a distraction, and it's not a very political issue. It doesn't really have a lot to do with other people who it doesn't even apply to, and it's just a waste of time to keep challenging it. Even Robert Bentley, the governor of Alabama, said when it first became constitutionally legal through the U.S. Supreme Court for any state to have gay marriage, even Robert Bentley said, this is an issue I'm not going to fight too hard against. I mean, he said he didn't support it. He said he wasn't in favor of it, but he said there's no need to go through years and years and years of court time and filing time, trying to fight something that, quite frankly, is just not going to be stopped in the United States of America, at least in this day and age. It's just not going to be stopped. And so I applaud the Alabama Supreme Court for that decision. And I would implore most of you out there who disagree with that decision to kind of just get over it. It's the sign of the times. We've seen things like this before. Obviously, there's a religious component as to why a lot of people are trying to keep gay marriage out of Alabama, but it's more than that. It's more of a cultural thing. It's more of a traditional thing. That's just something that's culturally frowned upon in Alabama, but we need to get over it because it doesn't really have anything to do with anyone else's lives. If it doesn't affect you, it doesn't affect you. This is a country where people are, as long as they're not hurting anybody, they're allowed to pretty much do what they want to do. And that doesn't really hurt anybody, honestly. And so it's something that we need to kind of just get over and move forward, because there's a lot of other issues that are more important that we need to be focusing on here in Alabama. All right, so now it's time for us to do our Super Tuesday and Super Saturday segment. So on our last episode, which was actually 2 weeks ago, but it re-aired last week, we talked about the importance of Super Tuesday. We talked about basically there were going to be a lot of primaries all over the country, Alabama being one of them, voting for a Republican and Democrat nominee for President of the United States of America. Also, just a few days after Super Tuesday, there was a thing called Super Saturday. There are about 4 or 5 other more very important contests. In all, nearly 20 states casted their votes, and a lot has been decided since then. So let's talk about the fields individually. Let's start talking about the Republicans, because they're a little bit more interesting right now. Now, obviously, since Super Tuesday and Super Saturday, Ben Carson, who just really didn't get a lot of traction this primary season, has decided to drop out the race. He didn't say it in those exact words that he was dropping out the race, but he's essentially dropped out the race. John Kasich, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump are the final 4 for the Republican parties. Kasich has not won any primaries yet. Marco Rubio actually won 1. His first win was on Super Tuesday. He won the state of Minnesota. It was a very important win for Marco Rubio, but it's just a single win. Now, how is Ted Cruz doing? Well, Ted Cruz is actually doing better than a lot of people thought. He won Texas, Oklahoma, and Alaska on Super Tuesday. So some very important, very big states. And then also this past Saturday, he actually won a lot in Super Saturday. He won the contest of, I believe it was Kansas and Maine. So it looks as if Ted Cruz is starting to become the dominant anti-Trump force in the Republican Party. It looks as if there's anybody who's going to be able to beat Trump at this point in the Republican field, it's going to be probably Ted Cruz, who's getting a lot of support lately. As for old Donald Trump, he actually swept the field on Super Tuesday, won several contests. He won here in Alabama, he won in Georgia, he won in Tennessee, he actually won in Virginia, surprisingly, he won in Vermont and Massachusetts. So he won all across the board on Super Tuesday, won a lot of contests. And what surprised me was that in places like Massachusetts, for instance, and Alabama even, he won by like 46, 47, 48 points in some of these places. So he's getting nearly half support at this point. So he's really building that coalition. However, I will throw in there, he is not a legitimate candidate. He is not running a legitimate campaign, and he is running a very long con, both from the Republican Party and the American people. And so people need to realize that Donald Trump is he's attempting to hijack the political party of the Republicans and also the political process in America for probably business reasons. And he's using nationalistic and racial hatred things to do that. So I would be very weary if you casted your vote for Donald Trump. Super Saturday was not as successful for Mr. Trump. He actually split even with Ted Cruz. He did win Louisiana, and I believe he won somewhere else, Kentucky. I believe he won Kentucky also on Super Saturday. So he's doing good. He's got more delegates. Cruz is starting to seem like a bigger force than he was originally. Rubio, like I said, only has 1 state to him right now. Kasich has none. Kasich will probably have to drop out here soon. Rubio may stick around for a little longer, but probably not. Probably not going to be there that long. It looks like it's going to be Trump and Cruz duking it out for the Republican nomination. Trump still looks like he's favored to win it, but the establishment does not want to give this nomination to Trump. They understand what he's really trying to do. And so Ted Cruz, though he too is very hated by Republicans and Democrats in Congress, they would rather give it to him than Trump. And so I think there will be that push to push Cruz into the nomination over Trump. What about the Democrats? What's going on that side of the field? Well, it's not as complicated because there's really only 2 people running, and that's Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Now, Hillary Clinton did extremely well on Super Tuesday. She swept the South. She won Texas. She won Oklahoma. She didn't win Oklahoma. She won Texas. She won Arkansas. She won Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. She won in Virginia. Got a close victory in Massachusetts. She won only by about 2 points there, but still won there. So she rose the victor in the Democrats' eyes for Super Tuesday. However, Bernie Sanders is not out yet. Bernie Sanders won 4 important contests on Super Tuesday. He won in his home state of Vermont, and he also won in Minnesota, Colorado, and Oklahoma. Now, the interesting thing about this is you got to understand, Vermont, that's the Northeast. He won there. Minnesota, that's the Midwest. He won there. Colorado, getting towards the West Coast states. He won there. And Oklahoma is his first Southern win. Although that's not a deep South state, that's still a Southern state, in my opinion. So that proves that Bernie Sanders is electable. For the longest time, we heard Bernie Sanders isn't electable. He's not electable. He's not electable. But he's winning in the Northeast, he's winning in the West, he's winning in the Midwest, and he's even got some Southern contests now with Oklahoma. So that proves that he's a little bit more electable than we previously thought. And then on Super Saturday, Bernie came out the victor that day. Hillary only won Louisiana on Super Saturday, while Bernie Sanders took both Kansas and Nebraska. Now, these are important states. Although they may be red states, Kansas and Nebraska represent America's heartland. And if Bernie Sanders is winning America's heartland, that means that Bernie Sanders is starting to win over independents, moderates, people who don't identify themselves as Democrat or Republican. He is starting to resonate a message that is more powerful than the Democrat Party itself. So with his Kansas and Nebraska wins on Saturday, I think Bernie Sanders is in a much better position than he was on Super Tuesday. And I don't think we should count him out just yet. Even though Hillary has more delegates and she's still favored to win, Bernie Sanders could pull an upset at the last minute here. And I think we're going to see Bernie and Hillary fight it out all the way till June, the same way Hillary and Obama fought it out back in 2008. As for the Republican contest, I think it's going to be Trump and Cruz probably doing the same thing, fighting it out till June. Not sure though, because Trump still is the more powerful person in that league. However, Cruz is gaining on him now. So Super Tuesday was filled with a lot of predictable stuff and a few surprises. Super Saturday was a lot more surprising. And what Super Saturday proved is that this is not a done deal. Even though Trump and Clinton look poised to win, Cruz and Sanders in their fields, they both still have a very good chance. And one of those 4 people will probably be the next president of the United States, barring anything else. And so I think it's going to be very interesting to see just who gets it. Welcome back to the show. So as I was saying earlier, we talked about the Super Tuesday and Super Saturday primaries at length. Now I want to talk to you about my own Super Tuesday experiences. I did go out and vote in my local area here in Alabama. And also, a producing friend of mine, Tommy, me and him went to Birmingham to try to get a sense of what this election meant for Alabama, how people in the Alabama area were going about this. Now, we wanted to get some footage of the crowds. I know there were a lot of crowds everywhere, but it started raining pretty hard. If you remember Super Tuesday here in Alabama, it was raining very hard throughout the state. Thunderstorms, and even a few tornadoes in the area. And so because of inclement weather, we weren't able to get all the footage we did. But we were able to stop by 2 important headquarters, both in downtown Birmingham. We stopped by the Bernie Sanders headquarters, and we also stopped by the Hillary Clinton headquarters. There were very stark differences between these 2 locations. Bernie Sanders headquarters felt more like a tech company. You know, the environment was very energetic, even though Bernie didn't really do well here in Alabama. The environment was very energetic. It was very tech savvy. It was going in that direction. Whereas Hillary Clinton had a more traditional Democrat vibe to it. There was a much more, I guess you could say, diverse population there. It was more of the traditional wing of the Democrat Party rather than this more techno progressive wing that we see kind of arising with Bernie Sanders. So here's a little bit of the footage so you can kind of get an idea of what we saw on Super Tuesday.
My name is Daniel Dariso. I am a field organizer for the campaign here in Alabama.
So what have you guys been doing today on Super Tuesday to help get the vote out?
So today we've been out canvassing, we've been passing out literature, we've been calling people, just trying to get out the vote. We've sent out emails, text messages to all our supporters in the state and just trying to get out the vote in any way we can. I think that our best efforts have been through canvassing, talking to people face to face.
And what do you think Bernie Sanders' chances are here in the Birmingham area?
I think we have a pretty good chance here, especially I've already seen reports on the news that voter turnout is looking to be very high this year. maybe in line with 2008, if not just a little less. So I think we have a really big chance here in Birmingham.
And is there any particular thing you want to say about the Bernie Sanders campaign, or basically the things you guys been doing here today?
Yeah, the energy behind this campaign is what has been driving it. We are a grassroots run campaign that doesn't take money from the Wall Street billionaires. Yesterday, on the 29th, we raised $7 million in 13 hours through grassroots fundraising, average donation of $27. That energy is going to drive us to the White House.
My name is Bo Floyd, and I am a volunteer for Hillary for America here in the Birmingham headquarters. And we've been working very, 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 very hard for Hillary because we know that she is the person who serves the people she loves. She seems to love everybody, and she gives her very, very, very best to whatever she's involved in. So we've had rallies. She's been to Birmingham several times. She was at Miles College Saturday. Huge turnout. And we think that, personally, I think she has a pretty good chance because we've been kind of following, even though the polls haven't closed, we've been following the precincts so far, you know, around the towns and cities and everything. And I have high hopes for her. I think she'll do great.
Okay, so before we get into our very last segment of the show, I didn't talk a whole lot about Alabama's Super Tuesday wins in terms of things specifically for the state. And I want to talk real quick about the Alabama Senate race that's coming up. I want to congratulate Ron Crompton, who won the Democrat nomination for U.S. Senator here in Alabama. So congratulations to him. We actually have a couple of friends who are working on the show now who actually know Ron Crompton. From what I hear, he's a wonderful guy. He's got some amazing plans for not just Alabama, but for the entire country. And I encourage you to Facebook Ron Crompton. Go on Facebook, look up Ron Crompton for Alabama, and see some of his plans, see some of the things that he's got going on, and consider him this November when you're voting for senator. He will, of course, be running against longtime career politician, Senator Richard Shelby. I have nothing against Mr. Shelby, but you know, I just want people to have a fair look at both candidates and see what they're offering, what they're physically offering for the state of Alabama. One thing I really like about Ron Crompton is he talks a lot about education, improving education in Alabama and improving education nationwide, building that back up here in America. And that's something we really, really need. So congratulations to Ron Crompton. He's going to be probably the only person I actually endorse on this show. I try to keep it objective. I try to keep it nonpartisan. I don't usually endorse people, but I do endorse Ron Crompton for senator, for U.S. Senator over Alabama. I would love to see him be senator. But speaking of education, we decided to do a little educational experiment here on the show this week. Now, I usually give you guys an educational moment each week. This time around, I'm going to give you something where we actually go out onto the working world out there in the public, and we see how educated is Alabama. You know, how is it going here? And so basically what we did is we came up with a little quiz show. We went out to Oxford Lake and we wanted to quiz people. We wanted to ask them very basic questions about politics, very basic questions about American government, and very basic questions about government here in Alabama. We came up with these questions. These are questions that you can find on a 7th grade civics test or on a 12th grade government test or even in a history class somewhere. So these are very basic questions, and we got prizes, these gift cards that we're going to give out. And now let's see just how people here in Oxford, Alabama fared when it came to our simple political questions.
Now, question number 1. Who was the 3rd president of the United States of America? Who was the 3rd president of the United States of America?
It's a pretty hard question, huh? Thomas Jefferson?
Yes, sir. That's correct. Congratulations. Who was the 3rd president of the United States of America?
Thomas Jefferson.
That is correct, sir. Who was the 3rd president of the United States of America?
Can't get a hit. Is it Thomas Jefferson?
You got it, man. That is right. You're on fire. All right. Now, for some representative questions. Who are the 2 U.S. senators in Alabama?
Oh, is it Shelby and the other name's not coming to me at the top of my head.
Who are the 2 U.S. senators in Alabama?
We have Shelby as one, and I forget his name. Does his last name start with a D?
No, sir, it does not. Do you know who the 2 U.S. senators are in Alabama?
I know one is Jeff Sessions. Richard Shelby.
That is absolutely correct. That's awesome. Who are the 2 U.S. senators in Alabama?
Jeff Sessions and what's that other one's name? Jeff Sessions and it's not that Crumpton. That was somebody on the thing. What was? I'm gonna say Crumpton.
It is not Ron Crumpton, but it is Richard Shelby and Jeff Sessions. How many articles are there to the Constitution?
I want to say 26.
Well, technically, there are 7 articles to the Constitution. How many amendments are there to the Constitution?
I believe it's 27.
That is absolutely correct. All right, now, how many articles are there to the Constitution?
I believe it's 11.
How about how many articles to the Constitution?
There was the president's considered the articles, and then it's the executive and judiciary, and then that could be 3, but I think there might be a 4th somehow. I don't know. I'm gonna say 3. 4.
4 is very close to our answer. 7 articles to the Constitution. Name 2 freedoms guaranteed in the First Amendment.
Freedom of speech and freedom of bear arms.
Name 2 freedoms guaranteed in the First Amendment.
So the freedom of speech is definitely one. I guess I've got a lot to choose from. The Second Amendment, of course, the right to keep and bear arms would be another one.
Okay. So the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, is correct. That's accurate information. Now, you got the freedom of speech right. We're just looking for one more freedom guaranteed in the First Amendment. Name 2 freedoms guaranteed in the First Amendment.
Freedom of religion. Freedom of speech.
That is correct.
Because when I think of First Amendment, all I think of is freedom of speech. That's all you think of normally.
I think one of these freedoms would probably be very important to the South, and one would be very important to coverage that's at a lot of our national assemblies as well. And
The right to assemble and the right to gather and so okay.
absolutely, good job. Who was the youngest president to ever take office?
I'm gonna have to go with John F. Kennedy, right? Am I right?
Technically, that is right. He was the first president to ever be. He was the youngest president to ever be elected. But the youngest president to ever take office was Theodore Roosevelt when he was 41. Do you know who the youngest president to ever take office was?
Is it John F. Kennedy?
That is actually our technicality winner question. Franklin Roosevelt was the longest serving president. How many terms was he elected to?
4.
That is correct, sir, but he only served 3 full terms. Who is the current U.S. Secretary of State?
The current U.S. Secretary of State.
Yes, sir.
And I know his name too. I got total brain freeze.
Who is the current U.S. Secretary of State?
Okay, U.S. Secretary of State. That would be Hillary Clinton.
Unfortunately not. Our current U.S. Secretary of State is John Kerry. Do you know who the current U.S. Secretary of State is?
Is it John Bonner?
John is his first name.
John Thomas? I don't know.
It is John Kerry.
Because I was actually a political science major, and I had to drop that after 2 years. I had to pay the student loan debts off. So a lot of this I learned years ago, and it doesn't take long.
What does the 16th Amendment to the Constitution deal with?
I think the 14th was slavery, 19th was woman. I think 14th through 16th might have been slavery. It was definitely not alcohol. It could be term limits, maybe. No, that's down the slavery area. I'm gonna say, gosh, I'm gonna go with, I don't know this one. I'm gonna say slavery.
It's not slavery, but we'll give you one more guess to guess this one.
Okay. It's after slavery, before women. Which the 21st Amendment alcohol? Oh.
Unfortunately, it is not alcohol, it is an income tax. What does the 16th Amendment to the Constitution deal with?
Is it the women's right to vote?
It is not women's right to vote. You have one more guess.
Was it the right to vote period? Is it the African American right to vote?
No, it is not. It has to do with an income tax. According to the Constitution, who is the second in line for presidential succession?
These are pretty tough questions, huh?
We're getting a little harder as we go along now.
I really don't know.
According to the Constitution, who, in the event that the president and the vice president are no longer capable of performing their duties, would be second in line for presidential succession?
Okay, it's House. Is it House or Senate Majority Leader? It's one of the I think it's one of the two, but I can't remember.
Is it part of the House?
Okay, I want to say that the House Majority Leader. Then is that correct?
Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. Okay. According to the Constitution, in the event that the president and the vice president can no longer serve, who is second in line for presidential succession?
The Speaker of the House.
That is correct. Congratulations. What state was Ronald Reagan elected from?
Florida, I believe, wasn't it? No?
Unfortunately not, no. What state was Ronald Reagan elected from?
California.
That is correct as well. Do you know who our president is right now? That's right. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Adriana. You did so great today. Whoop. Nice. Thank you. Y'all have a great day. Thank you for participating.
That was a fun segment. I had a lot of fun doing that. Thanks to everybody who helped me with that. Thanks to all the people who participated in that. Thanks to my correspondent, Mallory, for conducting those interviews. I want to thank you all for watching this episode. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at wethepeoplechannel2@gmail.com. You guys have a wonderful night, and I'll see you next time.